Hello brothers and sisters, today we would like to expand on the technology available to the elite for greater means of control. We touched on it in a previous video to which we will leave a link. A brain-computer interface, BCI, sometimes called a mind-machine interface, MMI, direct neural interface, DNI, or brain-machine interface, BMI, is a direct communication pathway between an enhanced or wired brain and an external device. BCIs are often directed at researching, mapping, assisting, augmenting, or repairing human, cognitive or sensory motor functions. Demonstrated in the technology we're allowed knowledge of, they clearly can already control the human mind. Let us take a look.
We start at the back of the brain. We've switched off my visual cortex, so made me unable to see things. We move a little bit forward in the brain. We've interfered with people's ability and my ability to see faces. A little bit further forward, we've interfered with the ability to perform actions. Start moving your finger. Quite odd. It's not your finger. It's not my finger. We've interfered with the ability to compute with numbers. We've interfered with the ability to speak. Land the bridge, land the bridge, land the bridge is falling down. If you think of something you can do, and you've basically interfered with it with this machine. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what's the problem?
The elite, using various corporations and government ops, have managed to tap into our brains wirelessly. We all know that wired technology can be replaced with wireless, as everything is simply a frequency or vibration. If you can harness a certain frequency, be it thought or perception, you can control the masses, thus manifest any reality you so chose, using the perception of the collective unconscious. After all, our universe is simply the manifestation of an agreed-upon construct of reality. We will be making a video explaining this further. For now, we will show you one of the greatest scientists of our time explaining biocentrism. Science is backing this theory up more and more, and it further backs up almost every occult understanding of reality. Please, take a look.
Robert Lanza was called by the New York Times one of the 3 most important scientists alive today.
Talk to you here about biocentrism, which is a new theory of everything which arrives at the same conclusions as non-duality. So every now and then a very simple but radical idea shakes the foundations of knowledge. So when the discovery of the Earth, that it wasn't flat, challenged the way people perceived themselves in their relationship with the surroundings. Our ancestors were challenged to believe that the Earth was round, even though the ground they walked on was flat. And nothing in everyday experience revealed anything about the truth of this idea. So if the Earth was really round, it was argued that people at the bottom would fall off. So it was considered complete nonsense 500 years ago. So likewise, biocentrism is turning the world upside down again, with the seemingly simple idea that the universe arises from life, not the other way around. It also becomes clear why the laws of the universe itself are fine-tuned for the existence of life. So until we recognize the universe in our head, attempts to understand the world remain a road to nowhere. We're taught since childhood that the universe is divided into 2 entities, ourselves and that which is outside of us. So this seems logical. Self is commonly defined by that we can control. So I can move my fingers, but I can't wiggle your toes. So consider everything around you right now. Me up here at the podium, your hands, your body. Language and custom all say that that's outside us in the external world. But you can't see anything through the vault of bone surrounding your brain. Everything you see and experience right now, your body, the walls, the ceilings of this room, are an active process that's occurring in your mind. So consider everyday reality. So, for instance, the weather outside. You see a blue sky out there, but the cells in your brain could be changed so that everything that's blue looks green or red. Could even do a little genetic engineering so that everything that's red makes a noise or vibrates or makes you want to have sex like some birds. You think it's hot and humid, but to a tropical frog it would look cold and dry. Is that reality involves your consciousness. It could not be there without your consciousness. So why is everyone surprised at the experimental findings of quantum theory? It's because we're still operating in a severely outdated paradigm. We still believe there's an external world that exists independent of the perceiving subject. So philosophers and physicists from Plato to Hawking have debated this. Niels Bohr, the great Nobel physicist, once said, "Not so. When we're measuring something, we're forcing an undetermined, undefined world to assume an experimental value."
Still don't think they can control people? Watch this.
You're going to stand right here. So when you're moving your arm like this, your brain is sending a signal down to your muscles right here. I want you to move your arm as well. All right, so your brain is going to send a signal down to your muscles. And so it turns out that there is a nerve that's right here that runs up here that innervates these three fingers. And it's close enough to the skin that we might be able to stimulate that. So that we can do is copy your brain signal that's going out to your hand and inject it into your hand so that your hand will move when your brain tells your hand to move. And so in a sense, she will take away your free will and you will no longer have any control over this hand, okay? You with me? All right, so I just need to hook you up. All right, so I'm going to find your ulnar nerve, which is probably right around here. You don't know what you're signing up for when you come up. So now I'm going to move away and I'm going to plug it into our human-to-human interface over here. Okay, so Sam wants you to squeeze your hand again. All right. Do it again. All right, perfect. So now I'm going to hook you up over here so that you get the stimulus. It's going to feel a little bit weird at first. This is going to feel like when you lose your free will and someone else becomes your agent, it does feel a bit strange. So I want you to relax your hand. All right, and Sam, you're with me? All right, so you're going to squeeze. I'm not going to turn it on yet, so go ahead and give it a squeeze. All right. So now, are you ready, Miguel?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Okay, so I've turned it on. So go ahead and turn your hand. Do you feel that a little bit? Okay, do it again.
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay, so relax. No, hit it again. Okay. Oh, perfect. All right, so relax. Do it again. All right, so now. All right, so right now, your brain is controlling your arm, and it's also controlling his arm. So go ahead and just do it one more time. All right, so that's perfect. So now, what would happen if I took over my control of your hand? And so just relax your hand. What happens? Nothing. Why not? Because the brain has to do it. Now you do it again. All right, that's perfect.
Please pay attention as he goes on to explain how we create our reality, not merely experience it. As they would have you believe.
We're not measuring the world, we're creating it. And this is from a physicist. And at the legendary debates, Einstein presented ingenious ideas supporting the idea of a real world out there. But Bohr shot every one of them down one by one and gradually convinced his colleagues of his point of view. Today, however, most people still believe there's an external world out there. This issue, of course, is ancient and predates biocentrism, which of course explains why one view and not the other has to be correct.
We have created videos to explain this, which we will link to in the description.
So let's consider a little of the physics, the real experiments. Consider the famous two-hole experiment. When scientists watch a particle go through two holes in the barrier, it acts like a little bullet and logically goes through one hole or the other. But if you don't watch it, it behaves like a wave and can go through both holes at the same time. So why should a particle out there change its behavior depending on whether you watch it or not? And of course the answer is that reality is a process that involves your consciousness. So this is the problem, in a nutshell, is that we look at the world like a chipmunk or a squirrel. The squirrel opens his eyes and sees the acorn, and it's just miraculously there. He grabs it and he scurries up the tree without any further thought. And we humans are the same. We wake up in the morning and the world is just magically there. So what we need to do is replace the old physics with a new biology. Space and time aren't these hard, cold objects out there. So again, all of experience is just information that's occurring inside your mind, And space and time are the mind's tools for putting it all together. We even do it in dreams. With your eyes closed, you can be on the beach with bright lights just as real as we are here in this room. Your mind has the ability to create space and time just like it does in dreams. And in schizophrenics, anyone who may be a doctor realizes that those patients see people right beside them in reality just like this, just as real as you and I right now. So it turns out that biocentrism may be the only rational way to explain the structure of the universe itself. So the cosmos, it turns out, has a long list of traits that make it appear as if everything was exactly tailor-made just for us. So for instance, the Big Bang, if it was 1 part in a millionth more powerful, it would have rushed out too fast for galaxies and worlds to be here. Again, the result, no us. If the strong nuclear force would decrease by 2%, atomic nuclei would not hold together. Plain vanilla hydrogen would be the only element in the universe. Again, if the gravitational constant were decreased just a hair, stars, including the sun, wouldn't ignite. There are over 200 parameters so exact. These could be any number, anything, but they're exactly just right for life to exist. And so, again, if you tweak any of them, you never existed. So obviously no universe that would allow for life could possibly exist from a biocentric point of view. The universe and all of its parameters simply reflect the spatial temporal logic of the animal observer. So it turns out the long sought-after theory of everything is really just merely missing one important component that was too close to us to have noticed. It rests in our desire for completeness and totality. So these comprehensive theories, all of them, feel right now to take into account one critical factor, and that is that we're creating them. That we're the biological creature that fashions the stories, that makes the observations, and it gives names to things. And therein lies the great expanse of our errors. And that is that science hasn't confronted the one thing that's most familiar and most mysterious, and that is, of course, consciousness. This old model proposes that the universe was, until recently, just a lifeless collection of particles just bouncing around each other. And they observed they were following these predetermined rules that were mysterious in their origin. And the universe was presented like this watch that had somehow wound up and then now is unwinding and allowing for a little quantum uncertainty, will unwind in a semi-predictable way. The bigger problem is that life contains consciousness, which is, to say the least, poorly understood. So consciousness isn't just a problem, though, for us biologists. It's a problem for physics. And there's nothing in physics that can explain, as you've already heard over and over, how a group of molecules in the brain creates consciousness. So the beauty of the sunset, the taste of a delicious meal, these are all mysteries to science, how we subjectively feel that. So how can something we can, like in neuroscience, we can pin down in the brain where parts of these occur, but what's really worse is that science can't explain how how consciousness arrives from matter. So our understanding of this most basic phenomenon is virtually nil. Interestingly, most of the models of physics don't even recognize this as a problem. At some point, virtually everyone has thought, this doesn't really work, this doesn't really explain anything fundamentally, not really. So when it comes right down to it, science is amazingly good at figuring out how the parts work. But what eludes us is the big picture. We create these exquisite technologies from our ever-expanding knowledge of the physical processes. We do badly in just one area, which unfortunately encompasses all bottom-line issues. And that is, what is the nature of this thing we call reality, this universe as a whole? So some scientists insist that the theory of everything is just around the corner and that we'll eventually know everything, and any day now. And this isn't going to happen, and it hasn't happened for a reason. And that is because we've shunted a very critical component out of our view. And that component, of course, is consciousness. And it's not just a small item. It's not like anything else. Indeed, it's nothing like anything else. Consciousness is awareness, it's perception, and in an utter mystery, we think it somehow just arises from goo. So how did inert, random bits of carbon ever morph into that Chinese guy who always wins the hot dog eating contest? So in short, the attempt to explain the universe, its origins, its parameters, and what's really going on requires us to understand how the observer, us, how our presence plays a role. So undeniably, it's the biological creature that makes the observations, that creates the theories. And our entire education system, indeed the construction of language itself, revolves around that bottom line mindset that assumes there's a separate universe out there, which each of us individually arrives at on a very temporary basis. It's further assumed that we accurately perceive this external, pre-existing reality, and we play little or no role in its appearance. However, starting in the 1920s, the results of experiments have started to show just the opposite. So the observer, it turns out, critically influences the outcome. And again, this is most famously illustrated in the two-hole experiment, which has been performed so many times in so many variations that it's conclusively been proven that if you watch a subatomic particle or a bit of light pass through two slits in a barrier, it will behave like a particle. And it creates these solid-looking hits on a barrier that the physicists can measure. And so like a bullet, it goes through one hole. But again, if you don't observe its trajectory, the particle then exhibits the behavior of a wave and can go through more than one hole at the same time. And since then, the list of paradoxes and intractable problems has continued to grow, starting with those accompanying the Big Bang. For instance, how could the entire universe just arise out of nothingness?
Understand that we literally create our reality. We have a video coming soon which outlines this, and how many occult, ancient writings have echoed this same notion. Please realize that we project our thoughts into reality. We are much more powerful than we've been allowed to believe. Science will reflect this more and more. If we all just became positive and completely ignored the political confusion surrounding the world, it would simply cease to exist. Do not give this system of control credence by validating its existence. Continue to think of it as a joke, because it is. We are more than just something to exist in a simple construct of control, an existence of enslavement. We are the all. We are reality. Let us shape it for the betterment of mankind.